Okay, it is now 5 minutes after, and a lot of you were very punctual, so the late people will have to suffer a little loss. So thank you all for coming. I think we'll have an interesting presentation. So this is given to you by, really it's the Loma Prieta chapter, of which I chair a subgroup of that called the Guadalupe Regional Group. And much of the territory for the Guadalupe group overlaps the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District's properties. And there seemed to be a lot of interest in what was going on. There's some things in the paper about mountain lions and new trails. So I reached out to Vice Chair of Mid-Pen, Yuriko Kishimoto, who also in the past has been a mayor of Palo Alto, and suggested organizing this presentation, and she did so. So I'm going to turn this over to her in just a second. I would like everybody to realize this is a recording, and we will post it on our website later. So you want to take it away, Yuriko, and introduce your staff members.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Gary. Yes, my name is Yuriko Kishimoto, and I'm very pleased that we have two wonderful Mid-Pen staff members with us tonight. One is Jane Mark, and she is the planning director, and you'll be hearing from her. And the other person is Karine Tokatlian, who is a natural resource specialist too, and she'll be giving the talk presentation on the wildlife corridors. So, so there is a lot going on at Mid-Pen. So I'm really pleased that you reached out to us. Let me see. So in terms of a little bit of housekeeping of how this is going to go, I'm going to give a little overview of Mid-Pen, and then turn it over to staff to present. But as Gary mentioned, it is just an open meeting. And so please, when you're speaking, make sure your mute is on, and that'll kind of keep the noise level down. And I think that's already happening. And in terms of questions, if you have questions along the way, you could raise your hand, and maybe at some good stopping point, I'll kind of pause to see if our staff can take some questions. I'll try to also keep an eye on chat, but maybe hands overall would be good. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Mid-Pen. So yes, thank you. Yeah, so the mission of Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space. Well, I mean, let me just start by saying, I always try to remind ourselves, that it's not by accident that Mid-Pen, we're surrounded by these 64,000 acres of land. It was due to the effort of volunteers and community members like yourselves, and so this mission and this three-pronged mission is what guides the decisions of each of the board members, and that is to acquire and preserve regional greenbelt of open space, and to protect and restore the natural environment and provide opportunity for ecologically sensitive public enjoyment and education. And in the last 10, 20 years or so, we're also served the San Mateo coast side. And so we have a slightly different mission there, which is expanded to include the protection of agricultural land of regional significance, and preserve the rural community character of the area. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I said, yes, it's not by accident that the land magically surrounds us. it is due to the hard work of a grassroots voter initiative back in 1972. There are 7 of us directors. We are funded by your property tax, so we thank you. We have 65,000 acres, 250 miles of trails, and our office is in Los Altos, and I'll mention that we're just opening a brand new office, so hopefully we'll have a open house sometime in the next year. And as you may remember, Measure AA, which was passed in 2014, which is allowing us to present, open these preserves that you'll be hearing about today. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a good overview of our green belt, 26 preserves. Okay, next slide. And these I'm sure the Sierra Club members that you're all aware of the amenities we provide, the hiking trails, mountain bike trails, dog friendly preserves, equestrian trails, 1 backpack camp, and many docent-led hikes. Next slide, please. And these are some of the many ways that we welcome the public to participate. Besides our staff, we do depend on the about 1,000 volunteers who get involved in one way or another. So please join us. Next slide. And then these are 2 of our what you might call volunteer visitor centers. One is up on Skyline, the Daniels Nature Center, and in Rancho San Antonio is the Deer Hollow Line farm. Okay, next slide. Okay, well, I'm going to turn this over to Karina.
Thank you, Yoriko. Hi, everyone. My name is Karine Tokatlian. I'm a resource management specialist too at Mid-Penn. I work with the Natural Resources Department. And today I'll just be sharing a handful of projects that we here at Mid-Penn manage that are related specifically to wildlife corridors and wildlife connectivity. Next slide, please. So this map that Mid-Penn created shows critical wildlife linkages which are essential for supporting wildlife in our area. It's a growing priority for Mid-Penn to protect and expand these large interconnected patches of habitat because they provide a number of benefits. They support species with very large home ranges like mountain lions and American badgers. They facilitate species movement and recolonization of different habitat patches after things like fire disturbance or changes in weather pattern. And these large linkages also promote the exchange of genetic material to maintain a healthy genetic diversity in wildlife populations. Even introducing 1 new animal in a new territory can really drastically improve genetic conditions of that population. So projects that enhance wildlife connectivity, like the ones shown in the yellow stars on the image, they're very beneficial for all of those reasons. And no single one of those projects can be will be independently effective, but together they'll support the connectivity goals throughout the peninsula and throughout our area. So Mid-Penn is doing our part through one of these projects, the Highway 17 Wildlife and Regional Trail Crossing project, which is outlined in black here. Next slide, please. Highway 17 has unfortunately fragmented thousands of acres of open space in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It presents a pretty hard barrier to wildlife, which limits their ability to move throughout that linkage area in order to find food and mates and habitat. And also, unfortunately, it results in the death of a lot of wildlife on the roadway through vehicle collisions. You can see those based on the icons in that image on the right there. This is especially true for mountain lions, who are wide-ranging animals and who are showing declines in genetic diversity in some areas of California. Highway 17 also obstructs several regional trail connections. So The two primary goals of the Highway 17 Crossings project are to provide safe movement for wildlife and recreational trail users across Highway 17. And we'll do that by connecting more than 50 miles of existing regional trails. And another goal is to link more than 30,000 acres of habitat and protected public land. And that will really improve that wildlife movement into larger territories, improve mountain lion genetic diversity, improve movement for other species as well, like deer or even badger. And this project will also reduce wildlife vehicle collisions, making the area safer for motorists as well. The project is currently evaluating potential crossing locations south of the town of Los Gatos. Two crossings are planned, one separate crossing for wildlife only and another crossing for recreational trail users. And as you might imagine, Mid-Pen is working with a large team of stakeholders and partners on this project, and construction is roughly scheduled to begin in 2025. Next slide, please. Another project that involves safe wildlife passage is the Alma Bridge Road Newt Passage project. Alma Bridge Road runs around the east side of the Lexington Reservoir, which is again just south of the town of Los Gatos. And the issue here is that both California and rough-skinned newts are crossing the road to breed in the Lexington Reservoir and unfortunately are being struck and killed by vehicles on the roadway. The density of those newt fatalities is sparse along the entire 4-mile stretch of road, but there are very specific sections of road where that newt mortality is much more concentrated, as you can see in the image on the right. Community scientists have counted over 27,000 newts attempting to cross the road, and a recent study that was performed by H.T. Harvey in partnership with Mid-Pen and Peninsula Open Space Trust found that about 40% of the newts attempting to cross the road during a single season were killed by vehicles. So this model shows that this is not a sustainable situation for this local population, and it actually risks extirpation of this local population unless improvements are made. So
Karina?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Why don't you finish up on this slide? And
Okay.
I do see a couple hands up.
Sure.
Questions.
So while Mid-Pen, we don't have jurisdiction over the road itself, but we are working with partners to identify corrective actions like road enhancements and directional fencing. We're focusing on minimizing the number of newt mortalities as much as possible, especially in those concentrated segments. And we are thankful to the volunteers and community scientists for bringing this to our attention years ago and for their years of data collection and support of the project. Just a current status update, we have a signed agreement with County Roads, and we have awarded a contract to begin a feasibility study, concept design, alternatives analysis, and a CEQA approach.
Okay, great. Let me see. I did see a hand up. I don't know if it's still up, but I see a couple questions that's typed in here. So let me, since I'm talking about those, let me go to those. One is, how wide will the Highway 17 crossing be?
Actually, a lot of those details are still in discussion, and we're still sort of in the planning phases, but once we have that information, we will certainly share it with our public, and some updates can be found on our Highway 17 project page online. And I'm not the project manager for that project, I'm representing it, so I'll try to answer those questions as best I can, but if I don't know details, I can try to direct you to others. Jane, you might have an answer.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Jane Mark, Mid-Pen Planning Manager. So I am working with the planning team who is working on the design concept for the highway crossing. So we are looking at, actually, let me go back to the slide here. Two crossings. One is a wildlife crossing, which will go under Highway 17. And then there's, of course, a recreational trail crossing, which will go above Highway 17. So we are working with a consultant team to develop designs right now. So we're in the design phase. We're hoping to have a future public meeting. Would love to hear input on these alternatives that we're developing. So keep an eye out on our webpage for Highway 17 project. You will get more information about a future public meeting that we can share more details about the design. So great question. Thank you.
Okay, and then there's another related question about whether it's going to be undercrossing or overcrossing.
Yes, so we are trying to achieve these goals here for wildlife connectivity. And so there will be one wildlife undercrossing, and then there will be a separate recreational trail crossing. So in total, there will be 2 crossings.
Okay, and let me see, there was a person with a hand up. Oh yes, Lisa, did you still have a question?
No, thank you. You answered my question very well. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right, back to you then, Karina.
Great. Great questions. Thanks so much. And this is the last project that I'll share with you. This is one that I'm particularly excited about, the American Badger Habitat Suitability Assessment. Mid-Pen, this was a 3-year-long study that just concluded about a month ago. And this, we created the study to better understand American badger population distribution, genetic condition, and habitat needs in the San Francisco Peninsula in order to provide adequate connectivity and management for the species in particular. Our research found that pathways for American badger movement throughout the peninsula, very narrow linkages throughout the peninsula. The first linkage is what we're calling the central linkage. That's that topmost arrow is pointing at. That moves through several mid-pen preserves near the Skyline and Highway 84 area. And this is where about 80% of badger activity was found in our study zone. The second linkage is an eastern linkage connecting that central core area down toward Coyote Valley, and that's what the rightmost arrow is pointing at. And finally, a coastal linkage that runs from North San Mateo County down the coast towards Santa Cruz, and that leftmost arrow is pointing at. Our genetic analysis also found that the peninsula badger population is fairly small and inbreeding, and they're also less genetically diverse than their neighboring populations. So we're starting to see that peninsula badgers are kind of similar to mountain lions in this area. They're wide-ranging animals. They require improved connectivity throughout the peninsula, and their genetic condition in the peninsula is not entirely healthy at this point. So this kind of research helps guide our management and set our natural resource priorities. Now that we know where the important badger corridors are, we can use science-based information to collaborate with neighboring landowners in order to manage habitats and enhance that much needed connectivity. I will also just point out the Highway 17 project actually sits right along that eastern linkage on the right, so it will benefit theoretically badgers as well over time. And the Cloverdale property, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the presentation, is right along the coastal linkage, which will also be an important property to manage for maintaining wildlife connectivity along the coast. And with that, I will, we can either answer more questions now, or I can hand things off to Jane for a trails discussion.
Let's see, there was another question from Lisa. I'm wondering if you're using GIS mapping of flora to assist in your conservation efforts, such as CalCamp.
Absolutely. We use a lot of GIS layer data and vegetation and flora data. In particular, we use that actually quite a bit for our badger study. We used that to inform the models that we analyzed to predict badger location and distribution based on their habitat characteristics and their habitat preferences. So yes, absolutely. With a lot of these sort of corridor and connectivity projects where we're trying to understand the landscape and different landscape barriers that might be affecting specific species, absolutely the vegetation and flora of the peninsula is an important aspect to keep in mind.
Okay, great. And yeah, and before we go to Jane, who will be talking about human trails. This might be a chance to ask participants if they have any other burning questions about natural resource side. But we'll have a chance to have a larger discussion after the presentation as well. So I think, yes, so let me reintroduce Jane Marks, who's our planning director.
Thank you so much, Director Kishimoto. I'm really excited to talk about trails, particularly because of the audience here. As I understand from Gary and Director Kishimoto, all of you are hikers and enjoy going outdoors and using our trails. So this is a great opportunity for me to share the network of regional trail projects that we're working on. So on this slide, we note a few of the regional trails in the area. Many of you might be aware of, but I'll touch on. So there is the Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail, Bay-to-Sea Trail, which actually is being led by the Peninsula Open Space Trust. And then there's the Saratoga-to-the-Skyline Trail, which is a partnership project amongst 3 different agencies, the City of Saratoga, Mid-Penn, and also the County of Santa Clara Parks and Recreation. And then I will touch on the new trails that are happening in our preserves. There is the Londa Creek Preserve, which we just opened, the Grasshopper Loop Trail. And then I'll share what we're doing in terms of future trails planning work. That's part of our master plan phase 2. And then I'll hit on Cold Creek Preserve. For those of you who are bicyclists, Alpine Road Regional Trail would be of great interest to all of you. Now, a network of regional trails provides an opportunity to connect people to more preserves and a variety of open spaces, improve access for bicyclists and equestrians, and really enable visitors to explore farther without having to leave a trail system. These interconnected trails can improve safety by reducing the need for trail users to walk or ride along a road between open space. And also we feel that regional trails help people understand the big picture of land conservation efforts in the region. Protecting the natural environment, preserving our open space is definitely a collaborative effort between public land management agencies, regulatory agencies, private landowners, and the public. So this is the first regional trail I'll highlight. It's the Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail. We're very excited about this. This has been a long envisioned regional trail that is going to connect the California Coastal Trail on the San Mateo County coast to the Bay Area Ridge Trail, which is up in the Skyline region, allowing our open space visitors to travel on the trail between the Pacific Ocean through the grassy ridgelines, canyons, forests to the ridgelines of the Santa Cruz Mountains. I mean, that's quite a vision there. The Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail will eventually be part of a larger regional trail system known as the Bay-to-Sea Trail, which is about a 40-mile regional trail system connecting east-west. And that is a regional trail that is still underway in terms of planning and coordination, which Post is leading that planning and coordination, which would one day connect the San Francisco Bay all the way to the Pacific Ocean. For our Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail, we have started working on this planning work back in 2021. And we're looking at the trail connection as well as future parking. This will we're in this exciting phase right now in terms of doing public engagement. We have an upcoming community open house in person in Half Moon Bay scheduled for June 29th. And if you can't join us in person at Half Moon Bay, we do have a virtual open house via Zoom on July 12th. So we will welcome all of you to join us at either of those events and learn more about the Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail. And specifically for this project, we are envisioning approximately 5 miles of new trail to be built, linking our Purisima Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve all the way down to the coast. We're also looking at building a new parking area and a trailhead to access the new trail system. And then there will also be connector or roadway trails that will link the Purisima-to-the-Sea trail all the way to the California Coastal Trail. This is definitely opportunity to improve our parking capacity at the lower Purisima Creek Redwoods area. I think many of you may have tried to go down to that lower lot and access our trailhead at that location. Here is a map showing the overall 40+ mile Bay to Sea trail. This extends east-west, connecting the San Francisco Bay to the Pacific Ocean. And on the San Francisco Bay side, there is the Ravenswood Bay Trail, which we opened a couple of years ago in East Palo Alto at our Ravenswood Open Space Preserve. That is one of the 2 starting points for the Bay to Sea Trail. Now, on the ocean side, on the San Mateo County coast side, we have a property that we have acquired known as Johnston Ranch. That is in the upper segment of the Bay to the Sea Trail. And this is a partnership effort with the city of Half Moon Bay, with Peninsula Open Space Trust and Mid-Pen to create that trail connection and also a future trailhead staging area at that Johnston Ranch property. On the south end of the most southern segment of the Bay to Sea Trail along the Pacific Ocean side, there is the Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail, which I just talked about. And we are in the process of completing a feasibility study for this new trail and trailhead parking. Very, very exciting work. Now I'll talk about the Saratoga-to-the-Sea Trail. Many of you may have hiked portions or all of this. This is about a 3-day hike if you decide to do this whole length from Skyline Ridge to Waddell Beach. It covers approximately 25 to 30 miles and climbs about 1,700 feet in elevation. Most notably, as you may all know, back in 2020, there was a big fire at Big Basin State Park. So the portion that goes through Big Basin, of course, is closed, but is very exciting for those of you who can hike portions of it. You can start as at the top at Castle Rock State Park at Saratoga Gap and descend down Highway 9 to Waterman Gap. And then at that point, enter Big Basin. What is exciting about Big Basin State Park is I recently attended California State Parks had a community open house, and they're talking about a phased restoration of that park and public access. They're hoping that this summer, as early as this summer, putting in an interim day use that you can go visit portions of the park via a permit reservation system. And that's really exciting to be able to do that. So,
go
are
ahead.
there questions?
There is a question in general, but why don't you finish this slide on Saratoga to the Skyline, and I'll come back to that. Yes. Okay, sounds good. So the Saratoga to Skyline Trail is definitely a partnership project. We have worked with the city of Saratoga and the county of Santa Clara. And this trail links the city of Saratoga's Quarry Park with the county's Sandporn Park. And it enables, it's a 9.7 mile trail that opened to the public in November 2020. In terms of our partnership with the city of Saratoga, we had provided funding to support the purchase of the 64-acre property that became Quarry Park. And then when the Saratoga to the Skyline Trail project began in 2017, we provided technical staff support as well as funding of $1.365 million towards the engineering, design, environmental review, and construction of this trail. It's truly wonderful partnership project. Now, the Saratoga to the Skyline Trail is operated and managed by the city of Saratoga and Santa Clara County Parks. If you need more information about this trail, go to the webpage for the city of Saratoga's Quarry Park, or go to Sanborn County Parks webpage on the county parks website. Now, this Saratoga to the Skyline Trail does allow hiking, equestrian, and dogs on leash.
no bikes except on the Skyline Trail segment that is up by Highway 35 to Sanborn County Park. This is definitely an important regional trail that will connect communities to open space throughout our region. And I'll pause there to answer any questions.
Okay, great. I know that, yeah, that's going to be a spectacular, both of those are going to be spectacular trails. But so the question from Terry Roberts is, what is your vision for how trails like Purisima-to-the-Sea and Bay-to-the-Sea trails will be used? Do you anticipate through hiking, backpacking? Will they be double connected so they could do some reasonable loops? Or is the expectation that people will do out and backs?
Great. Oh boy, lots of great questions there. So the vision for Purisima-to-the-Sea trail, we are going to be considering with community input the options for multi-use, which means that it would allow potentially definitely hiking and mountain bicycling and equestrian uses. Because it will connect to the Bay Area Ridge Trail, the Bay Area Ridge Trail allows all those multi-uses in terms of hiking, biking, and equestrian uses. In terms of backpacking, because the Bay-to-the-Sea Trail will be one of those long distance trails, we imagine that there will be opportunities for folks to have overnight backpack experience. Now, one of the challenges for, along the Purisima-to-the-Sea Trail, Mid-Penn would look to other partners like San Mateo County Parks and state parks to provide camping facilities along the way. So there are portions of the land within the San Mateo County coastal area that we would not be allowed to build any campgrounds in there due to an agreement with the San Mateo County local area formation commission when we annexed to the San Mateo coast. And then the other question was, will there be loop trails? Yes. So as part of evaluating the trail system for the Purisima-to-the-Sea, we are looking at, of course, the long distance trail, as well as loop trail opportunities from the trailhead location. Okay. I think I've answered those questions unless there's more.
All right, go back to you, Jane.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'd like to also highlight at our La Honda Creek Open Space Preserve in La Honda in San Mateo County, the Grasshopper Loop Trail. We are celebrating our 50th year as an agency. We were established back in 1972. And we're also celebrating that we have 250 miles of trails that have been completed and open to public use. The most recent trail that we've opened to the public is the Grasshopper Loop Trail at La Honda Creek Preserve, and we opened it on June 3rd, which was last Friday. Now, the trail name was named to honor two grassland dependent species that are found at this preserve. The grasshopper, and then there's a sparrow called the grasshopper sparrow. This trail does go through working ranch lands with active grazing. So it would be very typical if you're hiking on this trail to see cattle out there sharing the open space with you. The trail also offers seasonal dog access. So for those of you who have furry pet animals, you can bring your dog out for a hike as well. Now, La Honda Creek Preserve, along with our Russian Ridge Preserve, particularly the Mindigo Hill area, are the two preserves that we have public trails that go through actively grazed areas. And these are part of Mid-Penn's conservation grazing program. The grazing is used to help manage and enhance coastal grasslands and the native plants and wildlife that they support. So the Grasshopper Loop Trail, we definitely invite you to come and visit. These are two photos that our director Kishimoto. And here on the right is the trail itself. It's an easy access loop trail that's open to hiking year round, unleashed dogs seasonally. This trail system can be accessed from our Sears Ranch Road parking area, which is near the town of La Honda. The Loop Trail was expertly designed and built by our Mid-Penn Trails crew to be patrol environment, stand the test of time, and provide an enjoyable visitor experience. To the left, you'll see this beautiful landscape. The left is the one you get from the Grasshopper Loop Trail. As I mentioned earlier, your dogs are invited, but we do seasonally close the Loop Trail between August 1st and December 15th to protect the health and safety of our visitors and to support our Mid-Penn Conservation Grazing Program during the calving season, which is why dogs would not be permitted at that time.
Yes, and I'll just add that, yeah, I was just there a week ago, and I can definitely 1 mile, easy, quite easy trail, but with a huge amount of variety and beautiful views. I highly recommend it.
Right. Excuse me, DeMarcus, you are the same preserve, La Honda Creek Open Space Preserve. Back in 2021, we completed a 10-month community engagement process with a 13-member public access working group to evaluate opportunities for parking and trailhead and trail access in the middle and the southern areas of La Honda Creek Preserve. And this process led to 4 potential sites within this preserve that we would further evaluate for trailhead parking. My planning team is currently working on a feasibility study that is assessing the opportunities and constraints with building a trailhead parking at one of the 4 potential sites. So we're also looking at some short-term public access improvements at the same time, adding equestrian amenities, benches, interpretive signage along the existing Harrington Creek Trail. And we are really excited to continue working on the phase 2 trails, which hopefully will connect the lower La Honda Creek area at our Sears Ranch Road parking area to the upper La Honda Creek area where there is a small permit parking lot off of Allen Road. And if any of you are interested in hiking in that upper La Honda area, you can go to our website and secure a day pass or a permit. This is free of charge. It's just something we have to do because the road that leads to this upper permit parking area is a private road. So our agreement with the private landowners in that area is that we would only allow up to 10 cars a day to get into that permit parking location. So our phase 2 trails work is looking at evaluating existing ranch roads for improvements. There are opportunities to convert some of these ranch roads to trails, and then also opportunities to build new purpose-built trails for public to use. Our Mid-Penn Land and Facilities Department is working on these critical tasks before our trails crew could construct the trails. We're doing trail design and engineering, biological and cultural resource surveys, botanical surveys, and then of course we need to secure permits from the County of San Mateo before we can start construction of the new trail. So keep your eyes open. We're really excited to continue working on this effort. Next here is I want to touch on Bear Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve, which is located in Los Gatos in Santa Clara County. We are really excited to be working on this historic cultural landscape known as the Alma Cultural Landscape Site. This was originally a site that was developed as a sawmill in the mid-19th century. Later on, it became a wealthy country estate for several families, and finally a Jesuit college with extensive manicured landscape and gardens. The Alma Cultural Landscape, which is located near the pond area here in the center of this preserve, it is part of the Bear Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve, which is about a 1,400-acre preserve located 9 miles south of downtown Los Gatos and pretty close to Lexington Reservoir in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This Alma Cultural Landscape tells a classic California story of land uses and development over time. when we, January of 2017, our Mid-Penn board approved a cultural landscape rehabilitation plan for Alma Cultural Landscape. And the purpose of this rehabilitation plan is to implement a fiscally sustainable cleanup and rehabilitation of the site so the public can come and enjoy the historic and cultural significance of this location. So there's a lot of work in terms of cleaning up some of the historic dilapidated structures, improving site safety and security, stabilizing the buildings on site, installing interpretive elements and native plants that convey the historic landscape. We're hoping in the next year to be opening this site. There will be wonderful pathways and interpretive elements for the public to come and enjoy. And I'd like to talk about the Alpine Road Regional Trail, which is in San Mateo County. This is part of our Coal Creek Open Space Preserve. Alpine Road is an existing dirt road that lies between the end of the paved Alpine Road in the north and Page Mill Road near Skyline Boulevard to the south. It extends approximately 2.3 miles through our preserve, and it serves as an important regional connection for cyclists and hikers traveling from Portola Valley to Upper Page Mill Road. The County of San Mateo has owned Alpine Road Regional Trail since the 1800s, and they closed it to public vehicular traffic in 1972. The county owns the fee title for this small section of the trail, and we are the partial underlying fee owner of the trail. We have used the trail for patrol, maintenance, and emergency access until a major landslide took place and the road washed out, as you can see in this photo here. The county closed this road to vehicular traffic in 1972 due to these conditions, the washouts, and there's major culvert failures and such happening in the area. So Mid-Penn is working on these goals to fix the degraded roadbed and failing culverts, remedy the sedimentation and erosion issues that are happening along the road, and ultimately improve access for hikers and bikers, equestrians alike. We are starting construction this month, and it will take 2 construction seasons to finish this trail and road improvement. So this will be closed during the construction season. We're hoping to complete the construction work in October of 2023 and to reopen it to the public for use. And so that concludes the regional trails and public access trails plans that are underway. And I'm going to turn it back to Director Kishimoto to talk about our e-bike policy.
Okay, well, thank you, Jane. That was a great overview of some really exciting regional trails, and thank you for staying on track despite those. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on, this wasn't advertised per se, but I just wanted to let the Sierra Club members who have come know about some other issues that Mid-Penn is working on. And one that's coming right up on June 29th is a policy discussion on e-bikes. And I know this is a topic that probably draws strong opinions from both sides. And the board has been talking about it for the last 2 or 3 years, actually, and we have started some pilots. So we have some information. And I just wanted to tell you, I guess the last time it came to our committee meeting, it was that some of the options which were before us includes, and this is limited to class 1 and class 2 bikes on e-bikes only. And of course, it would be if we do open it up, we would open it up only to the limited number of trails which are open to bicycles already. But given those, I mean, it could either be to open all the trails which are currently open to bicycles to class 1 and class 2 e-bikes, or don't allow any e-bikes at all except on the 2 improved or paved trails, that we have. One is in Ravenswood, which is a commute trail for people going to Google and such. And the other is Rancho San Antonio, which is that section that just goes to the farm. So anyways, it's just a heads up. We won't be discussing it. And yes, I see a question from Lisa. Why don't you go ahead and.
Hi, thank you very much for hearing my opinion. I've hiked virtually every single mile of your incredible trails. And I laud you guys for all the great work you've done. And I support you 100%. But I will tell you, as a hiker, an ecologist, a wildlife biologist, and a botanist, I see tremendous damage being done by bicycles. On the John Nicholson Trail, there are many different shortcuts across the trails. I have actually moved fallen trees to prevent them from doing this. So these folks are not out there to enjoy nature. They're really out there on a joyride. So I would please ask you to restrict the use of bicycles as much as possible, only to paved areas. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And if you want your opinion heard by the entire board, please do submit it for that June 29th meeting. So,
Thank you.
Okay. Let me see. All right. So that's just a heads up. It's coming. I guess another huge priority that our Mid-Penn organization and board has been focusing on is wildland fire resiliency, and we're just fearing that wildland fires may become a big issue this summer. But our board has been actually prioritizing both our resources and our staff to greatly reduce the scope of it. And I'll also mention that the way we approach this is through an ecologically sensitive process. So we've mapped out where the sensitive vegetation is, so that as much as possible, both the wildland prevention and all the other efforts take that into effect. So let me, next slide. I think the next slide is related to this. Yes, okay. Yes, this shows the very high severity range zones and the very high severe hazard zones. And you can see there's a lot in the area. And many of them do adjoin residential zones. So we're highly cognizant of that and working very hard with our neighbors. Okay, the next one. Okay, great. Yes, this shows the 600% increase. So it was a dramatic increase of our resources on this. And it's done by the vegetation clearing and fuel breaks, including shaded fuel breaks. And any other questions on this? I guess not. Yes, and next slide, please.
Director Kishimoto, if I can also highlight something on this slide. Our Mid-Penn is also working on a prescribed burn plan.
Oh, yes.
Which is increasingly important for us to do in order to meet public safety and conservation goals on our preserved lands. Now, Mid-Penn has historically conducted prescribed burns on our preserved lands in the past, but we discontinued it over time. And it's something we'd like to go back and do because it is the most effective tool in terms of wildland fire resiliency and also land conservation. While this slide talks about vegetation clearing and creating fuel breaks, that takes a lot of human and staff time, but doing a prescribed fire burn is something that's more effective. And we certainly would work with CAL FIRE, local fire agencies, and work with our local neighbors in terms of addressing these types of plans that are being developed. And one more point before we go to a comment is that our natural resources team, they are going to be scheduling some upcoming meetings and open houses about this. So if you want to learn more about our prescribed burn program, We do have information on our website, and there will be information about upcoming meetings. And I'll turn it back to you, Director Kishimoto.
Okay, yeah, so, well, thank you so much for jumping in with that, Jane. Yes, Terry, you have a question?
Yeah, I really like more depth about what sustainable prescribed burning looks like. How often does every acre need to be burned in order to make it all work? Do we need to burn 10% of all of the area every year in order to get everything burned once every 10 years? I mean, what does it look like to sustainably maintain our open space using burning?
Well, I can't answer that question right now, Ms. Roberts, but I definitely would invite you to come to our public open house, which will be scheduled I think it will be sometime this summer. So I would encourage you to sign up for notifications about this project, the Prescribed Burn Program, and you will get notified of our upcoming open houses.
If I can just jump in real quick, I believe the dates for that open house are July 18th, 20th, and the 21st. I think they're evening sessions, and so you can check our website for confirmation, but to give you a general sense. And I can't answer the question either, but in general, I think it's very site specific, very habitat specific. It depends on fuel loads that have built up over time. It depends on the type of vegetation that's growing, you know, grassland area versus a more forested or scrubland area. So I think there's quite a variety and quite site specific answers for you.
Yes, that's good. And the only thing I would add is the reason that we're seeing these horrible high intensity wildfires is because we're obviously seeing the result of 100 years of non-management and fire suppression. So it's definitely we're definitely not going to allow it to increase to that level again. Okay, great. I see a hand up from Aaron.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to point out that a management fire is a valuable tool. It's not a silver bullet. It is possible for management fires to escape. And I would recommend looking into risk mitigation.
Yes, thank you for that. And yes, we will definitely be taking many precautions. So yeah, I know a huge amount of planning that goes into each burn. So thank you. Okay, all right. I think next slide then. Okay, Cloverdale. Yes, Cloverdale the board is looking at this potentially very large acquisition, either later this year or early next year. As you can see, it's about 6,300 acres. It's on the coast, and it's a unique opportunity to protect this this land with many special natural resources to protect, including I believe the San Francisco garter snake, which is photographed there. And I don't know if Karina, I don't know if is there anything you wanted to add on this?
Just that this is a really fantastic property for a lot of natural resource related reasons, as well as you know, what it offers to the coastal grazing community as well. We have a fantastic population of San Francisco garter snake within the property, which are federally endangered species. The snake pictured in the image there, you know, red-legged frog. Also, I mentioned earlier with the Badger project, the corridors that are essential for their movement along the coast run straight through the Cloverdale property. And, you know, we've gotten plenty of footage of mountain lion families moving through there as well. And so it's really just a wonderful property along the coastal area that provides a lot of wildlife and natural resource and water and other important vegetative communities as well. So we're very much looking forward to managing this in a way that is, responsible and also serves our grazing community as well.
Great. Okay.
If I can also add, Director Kishimoto, this property also will help support the continuing agricultural uses on the coast. The property does include multiple active farms, about 4,500 acres of grassland, of which 2,750 acres are grazed. It's just an amazing piece of property. So this 6,300 acre property will support wildlife protection, conservation grazing, continued agricultural use, partnership opportunities to work with the local community groups, absolutely a lot of opportunities for interpretive program and potential future regional trail connections with any surrounding parks and preserves in the area. There is an existing area down on the southern end of this property known as Wilbur's Watch. Some of you may be familiar with this Wilbur Watch trailhead and staging area. There is a 1 mile trail that you can access from this property at this current time. And it is definitely a great opportunity to go visit and see the ocean when you get to the top of Wilbur's Watch, if you haven't got a chance to do so. Thank you, Director Kishimoto.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for the next slide. Okay, and finally, I wanted to invite everyone to participate in celebrating our 50th anniversary. So it's I guess we began this presentation thinking back to the founding of Mid-Pen, a band basically of activists and citizens who got together it's interesting to point out that it didn't come from government. It didn't come from the Board of Supervisors, but it came from citizens who collected the signatures, and still well over 2/3 of the people voted to collectively set aside and care for this land. So hopefully it'll be another 50 years and forever. So, okay, next slide. Great, and this is kind of some activities which we're using to celebrate. We just had the Ravenswood celebration. There is one coming up on September 10th on the coast side at the Johnston Ranch that Planning Director J. Mark mentioned. So everyone, please put that on your calendars. And there's various social media ways and other ways to help to celebrate as well, including the Spotted at Mid-Pen and the Mid-Pen Explorer Challenge, which would be great for hikers. Okay, next slide. Okay, that's the last one. So, yes, are there any final questions? Yes, I see a question from Aaron. Oh, Aaron, you're muted.
I wanted to thank you and all of the presenters today for a really informative and helpful presentation. I thought that the chart package was excellent, and I learned a lot from it. I hope that you'll make the charts available online if they're not already. And I'd also like to especially call out our Zoom host, Gary, who dealt with a difficult situation. I appreciate it that you recovered the meeting for us.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gary. Okay, Terry.
Hi, I love Mid-Pen. Hike in your preserves all the time, lead a group and so forth. We have several people in our group who love hiking with their dogs. And very few Mid-Pen preserves allow them. I'm curious why that is and if there are plans to open any more trails for dogs than you have.
Maybe I can
Yes.
take that question.
Okay, Jane, go ahead.
So Ms. Roberts, we actually offer quite a bit of preserves that do allow for dogs. Most of our preserves that allow for dogs are on our website. I am happy to send you a link to it. But the recent trail that we just opened, the Grasshopper Loop Trail, is open to dogs. So that's the newest trail that we've opened in La Honda Creek Open Space Preserve. We invite you to bring your dog out there.
Okay, great. And yeah, and I would just add, I do understand your questions. We do get that question quite a bit. And, I think one reason is the priority that Mid-Penn places on the natural ecology that we're within, and the impact on animals and such. So dogs do have, some impact on the wildlife around us. So maybe compared to some other open space managers, you won't see as many trails open, but I think, yeah, Jane is right. There's quite a few. Okay, any other questions? Well, if not, yes, please. I do want to thank Jane Mark and Karina Tokatlian for their wonderful presentation. So, and thank you, Gary, and everyone for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you very much. This has been one of the better ones. One judgment mechanism I have is that very few have left. So sometimes because it's gone a little bit further than I think I was anticipating, but that was great. When we used to meet in person, I had everybody, applaud the good old fashioned way. So if you can unmute for a moment and applaud these three ladies for an excellent presentation. It's been educational to me. I love Rancho San Antonio open space so much. I haven't ventured further out, but you've motivated me to look further. I also have learned the power I have. I didn't know I could actually remove anybody. So I thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to put on my calendar one of those dates for the 50th anniversary. We are very lucky to have preserved this region around us and have competent people taking care of it. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, we're very lucky to have Sierra Club, which is also done such amazing work for the environment. So we really appreciate you as partners.
Sure, whatever we can do. Okay, so I am going to press end, and when I press end, it ends things. So thank you all again for attending, and thanks again to the Mid-Penn people for.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all
you.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.